Reactor.
Thunder! Thunder! Thundercats! Ho!
Systems nominal.
Hello and welcome to today's Battletech review. Today we're going to be looking at the Thunder, which is one of Aus Liao's premier heavy mech. Even though it's not super popular with anybody else, we do have quite a few of those floating around in our inventory here in the periphery. I know our friends in the Torian Concordat and the Calderon Protectorate also have a few of those, mostly because they've bought them off Aus Liao, and they're probably not that rare either in the Magistracy of Canopus, but I have, not been dealing with them as often. We have the two main body kits here on display from the main page here. The more sleek pre-Jihad model and the post-Jihad model. It's the same mech, it's just the body kit has changed a little bit for various aesthetics reason and a simplification of maintenance. So let's get into it. The Capellan Confederation honestly was not in the best of shape after the Fourth Succession War. It's probably the lowest point they had been since, well, forever. Honestly, the Capellan Confederation had been a middling power for a little while here during the Third Succession War. In earlier eras, they've been okay to actually pretty darn good, even though they had some issues with fighting against some periphery states every once in a while. The Fourth Succession War had cost them a massive amount of territory, but they also lost quite a few of their officers, which is always a big issue if you're trying to run a military. The actual military itself was basically falling apart, and most of their factories had been lost to the Federated Commonwealth. You had to add to this that their leadership had gone from Maximilian Liao, who was a paranoid, incompetent man, to a paranoid mass murderer with Romano Liao. So you have to look at just how bad things were really going. The recovery of the Elm's Memory Core did help the Capellan Confederation quite a bit, however. It was disseminated for free, which is what a lot of people find a little bit weird, by the Great At Legion and, well, just about every merchant who had any contact with them. A lot of companies in the Capellan space got their hands on it and started using what they found and what they could use in it in order to reestablish themselves or grow a little bit. Another thing that was really helpful to the Capellan Confederation was the fact that they were not affected by the clan invasion at all. The Federated Commonwealth was far more busy fighting the Jade Falcon and the Clan Wolf than to actually go and fight against the Confederation, which they had more than likely planned to take out completely at that point. The big winner in the whole thing was Ceres Metal Industries, who were the main provider of military equipment for the CCAF, and they expanded their facilities and started building new ones all over the place, and basically establishing a stranglehold over the CCAF procurement contracts. There was a bit of another problem, however. The Capellans had an issue with the fact that they didn't have the rights to build a whole lot of mechs. They had their Vindicator, which was the backbone of their entire military at that point. They had the rights to build the Cataphract, which is a decent enough mech, but, you know, it kind of was in the hands of Alsdavion at that point. The Raven was a decent enough mech, but, you know, it's a light mech and not going to win you any war on its own. A bunch of new development projects were rushed into production, and the results started coming out after the aftermaths of the Battle of Tukayid. You had things like the Mechwarrior, which is a very decent medium mech, using quite a bit of advanced technology and very good at finding targets. You had the Snake, a rebranded Vindicator. I mean, it's easier to build a new mech using an existing platform in the way. And finally, you had the Thunder. The THR-1L was the end result of years of development by Ceres, and it was finally unveiled just a few months before Romano Liao had an untimely meeting with her sister Candace. I think we're allowed to say that nowadays. Candace Liao did write about it in her memoirs. Admitting to the murder of a state leader is never an easy thing to do, I guess, and I don't think it's a conspiracy theory anymore. Production started in earnest under the stewardship of Sun Tzu Liao, who will probably have to say that he is probably one of the greatest chancellors the Capellan Confederation had since the fall of the Star League. At 70 ton, the THR-1L is quite fast for a mech its size. It goes 86 kilometers per hour using a Magna 350 XL, which is, well, quite good if you compare it to other mechs in the same bracket in the Inner Sphere arsenal. If you look at clan mechs, though, I mean, it's going to be going as fast as your summoner, but still, it's quite good to get into fights with other units. It has 11 integral double heat sinks, keeping it decently cool as well. You have a standard chassis, nothing fancy there, and 13.5 tons of case-enhanced plates in order to make it decently tough. If the ammo goes, of course, you're going to lose the mech because it's going to have a destroyed engine, but you're only going to have to replace the engine, not the entire machine, so it's still a decent trade-off. The head is reinforced with that little bucket helmet on the top. It's pretty funny looking, but it works fairly well. All of this is to allow the Thunder to get really close to an enemy mech and bring a large Kaliyama big bore 20 class autocannon, which is what you would also see on the very ubiquitous Hunchback. At longer range, the Thunder carries a Jaguar 5 rack of LRMs from Science Series. It allows it to drop smoke rounds downfield in order to cover your advance. That's probably the main reason you would use that particular weapon. At even closer range, even closer than your Mammoth AC-20, you get a trio of Series R Model W medium pulse lasers. This will allow you to carve things up pretty well, and I mean, you want to get very close to someone to also be able to kick with those big legs of yours. Every single module and parts on the Thunder were built in-house in the Capellan Confederation, simplifying logistics and deployment of the machine. Honestly, it was a marvel of Capellan engineering. Little border clashes with the Capellans are quite common in my part. Literally every few years, you've got a Mandarin who thinks they know better, and they decide to invade the Aurigan Trade Alliance. Every single time, they get clapped back, and they go back to Sion, where they have to write an apology letter, and they usually pay us a decent amount in reparations. End result is that by 3060, the Aurigans add a decent number of Thunders in their inventory, and we add a refit for it. As usual, the base thing is that we stick ferrofibrous plates on it, since we're the ones building the stuff for the region, and we replace the 3 medium pulse lasers with standard medium lasers or ER medium lasers. I mean, it really depends on when we add access to them. With all the saved weight, the 5 rack of LRM is replaced with a 10 rack of LRMs, giving you a little bit more long-range firepower, and with those medium lasers or ER medium lasers, you also get a little bit more range. A little bit less accurate, you get a little bit less close range punch, but I think it's a decent trade-off. There was an evolution to the design in 3063 as the Federated Commonwealth was starting to tear itself apart. This one was jam-packed with modern technology, however, starting with a Guardian ECM system tied to 13 tons of stealth armor. This makes the Thunder quite difficult to hit at longer range and a little bit more fancy. The musculature is also replaced with triple strength myomer, which takes advantage of that stealth armor generating a massive amount of heat. Your main gun is replaced with an LBX, so with a 20 class LBX autocannon, you can switch out the clusters or 2 slugs to deal either a very nice one-time punch or just to pepper your enemy with little pellets. The lasers are replaced, however. You get a pair of ER medium laser and an ER small laser. So you've got a little bit more range under ER medium laser. That ER small give you an okay range and an okay amount of damage. I mean, it's not a terrible setup for lasers. And your missile rack is replaced with a 6 tube of Streak SRMs to once again exploit holes in enemies' armor. This is going to be a massive crit seeker, basically. Once the enemy armor is sandblasted off, things are going to start looking really bad for your enemy once the big gun or the SRMs start taking advantage of it. Skipping forward in time, though, Ceres started building a sister machine to that particular version of the Thunder with the Lightning in 3119. It's the same basic chassis, you can tell by the head on there, but this time it's made of endo steel and you have 11.5 tons of light ferrofibrous in order to protect it. It uses the same engine as the Thunder, so it's easy enough to swap one for the other. To cover for the Thunder having a short-range armament, this one is equipped with long-range weapons with an improved heavy Gauss rifle with 3 tons of reload on one side, and the other side packing a heavy PPC. It is a pretty nice sister machine, and it's going to be a nice direct fire support machine. I'm not sure here. I probably would have tried to fit a targeting computer on there, but I don't think there's really enough room for it. Maybe you'd have to switch out that improved heavy Gauss rifle for a standard Gauss rifle and then stick a targeting computer on. I'm not quite sure what you can do with it. It's very rare. I haven't really seen a whole lot of those. But, I mean, from the experience I had with them, I'm okay with this machine as well. Going back, well, we've got the 3066 THR-3L, which was meant to be an artillery delivery platform. You still have the triple strength myomer and the stealth armor, but your armor weapon is now an Arrow 4 artillery missile system with 2 tons of reload. That's not a whole lot. You're going to probably be carrying standard rounds and guided rounds, unless you've got plenty of guys with tags out there, so you might carry a pair of guided rounds on there. For backups, you get a pair of ER medium laser and that Streak 6 tube of SRM, which is not really awful. It effectively replaced all catapult C3s that were in service in the Capellan Confederation. It is a decent artillery delivery platform. It's fast enough to get to a place where it can hide and just shoot those missiles. I always prefer vehicles for artillery delivery personally from experience, but having something that can easily climb mountains and get to a high point might be a very good idea as well. 3083 brought in the THR-C4, which is an experimental design during the Jihad. This one's slower, using a 280XL engine for a top speed of 64 kilometers per hour, but you get 180 meters of jump range using improved jump jets. The body is made of endo steel to save even more weight, and the missile launcher is on there still, but this time it's a Thunderbolt 20 rather than an Arrow 4. You get the same kind of firepower, but it's not an artillery missile, it's a direct fire unit. You get 4 tons of case-protected ammo, this time case 2, so if it goes, well, it goes out the back. And to back this up, you have 3 ER medium laser and a medium X-pulse laser as well. Lots of experimental stuff for the time, and pretty decent overall. And you know me, I'm not a huge fan of improved jump jets, but I think here it will probably work. Thanks to the good people at Battle Lightning, well, the people on the forums at Battle Lightning, we know of a theoretical evolution on the design as well. Let's face it, Battle Lightning is one of those awful places where you post something saying like XYZ mech is bad, and you'll have a whole bunch of people from the actual military-industrial complex show up and try to prove you wrong by posting things that are entirely classified. I'm very happy that we got those informations, though, because I do like what we've heard, at least. This one uses a hybrid of the C4 and the Lightning endo steel chassis in order to save on some weight, and the ammo would be protected by case 2. The Capellans have been using clan-graded LB20X in recent years, and I would say that this one would use it as well. At least that's what the people on the forums have been saying. All these weight saving allows you to carry a 5-tube rack of LML, so you can shoot both LRMs and SRMs with it. You do lose on the accuracy of that Streak launcher, but you get back your ability to just drop smokes down the field. All the lasers are replaced with medium X-pulse lasers, giving you a little bit more range compared to the original's medium pulse laser. It's closer to that original model, but it works really well, at least from what I've seen on paper. Chengli Arms used the Thunder and plans from a student at Victoria Academy in order to build a replacement for the Thunder, which they called the Lahohu. This particular machine is also quite popular with our friends in the Capellan Confederation and shares some of the design aesthetics and the design specs of our good friend the Thunder. It's a little bit bigger, 75 tons, and it shares the speed and primary weapon of your Thunder with an LB20X. It does, however, feature more long-range weapon with an ER large laser and a 15 rack of LRM. We will have a full discussion on that design at some point. People really like the Hunchback, and I certainly understand why. The Thunder is basically more of the same. It ends up being a little bit more fragile due to that larger XL engine, and the gun being in the arm gives the Thunder a wider range of fire, but it's a little bit more easy to knock it out. This is a design that sells decently well, and it with about 100 years in full production and development, while you will see quite a few of them in any unit close to the Capellan borders. I'm pretty sure the Andurians have a decent number of them. Anybody in the Capellan March militias or anybody around New Syrtis probably have a few of them, and it is a mech that I would consider using in any decent formations. Once again, it replaced the Hunchback fairly well. If you want something that's a little bit tougher yet not tougher, it really falls in that weird middle category here. The fact that it's faster will allow it to get where you need it to be to bring that big gun to bear, or maybe a Thunderbolt 20 missile. So I thank you very much for listening to me for so long. I hope you guys have a very nice rest of your day, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.
You